Yeah, that's interesting. He definitely wanted me to go to, well, he graduated from Harvard Law, didn't necessarily want me to be a lawyer, but there was an influence with my acting because I would see him in the courtroom and he had a very kind of magnanimous, cool demeanor.
Mm.
And I saw that, and he made the connection actually. He said that both um, the law and acting is the art of persuasion and storytelling to some degree. So there was actually a connection.
Mm.
He didn't really have a problem with me being an actor. I started out as an apprentice at the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater,
Mm.
and Burt was very supportive of the apprentices. It was really, we didn't get paid anything. We had all the food we
Mm.
wanted and a place to sleep upstairs above the theater. They had bunk beds and stuff. And we'd build the sets, and occasionally uh, there'd be a play where you could do a walk-on role, get a few laughs, and then if it really went well, like a pizza delivery guy or something, and you find something funny to do, and then at intermission you would serve drinks, and if you were funny, then you'd make a lot of tips.
Mm.
So, but it was my first exposure to professional actors,
Right.
and yeah, it was a strong influence on me being around them. Yes, it was intriguing because we had been told that he had masqueraded or pretended to be a senior in a Long Beach high school
Hmm.
because he had been hired by Rolling Stone. He was a Rolling Stone reporter at a very early age
Mm.
to pretend to be a senior and spend a whole year in an American high school and write about that experience. So we knew that a lot of the dialogue had come right from the kid's mouth. So we felt like we were doing something authentic, but was also funny. But everything had actually happened. All the
Mm.
events in the movie had actually occurred at some time during the year that um, he hid his identity and pretended to be a senior. And sometimes he would hear this great run of dialogue, and since he wasn't wearing a wire, he'd have to run into the boys' room and write it all down. So
Mm.
yeah, so we felt like we were doing something special. Well, Beverly Hills Cop was originally an action movie more than an action comedy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it
He
had a
was
like.
huge. He was obviously huge back then, right?
I, Stallone was the biggest star on the Paramount lot and one
Right.
of the biggest stars in Hollywood because of Rocky and Rocky 2, which made a tremendous amount of money for Paramount. So yeah, they wanted to find a vehicle for him, and he liked that script. It had a lightness because Axel Foley, that was his name,
Hmm.
was uh, culturally from the wrong side of the tracks of Beverly Hills. So you still had that fish out of water, but not to the extent
Mm.
that Eddie brought. But it was really more action. It was a revenge movie where he comes to Beverly Hills to avenge the death of his friend, and he meets a young rookie. And Billy got originally in that script was violently killed, which made Sly even angrier and more intent on getting the bad guys. What happened was Sly rewrote the script and added a lot of money to the budget because he wanted a big crash up on
Right.
Rodeo Drive and Rolls Royces, and with his. I think the Chevy Nova, was still in that script. Anyway, Paramount wasn't prepared to spend that amount of money, but they didn't want to tell Stallone no. So Jeffrey Katzenberg, who's an amazing movie executive, yeah,
Right.
and who has had a lot of influence on Eddie's career as well, he went to Sly and said, "Listen, I know you like this Beverly Hills Cop, but we have this movie Cobra, which we think is
Oh,
better." And so Stallone agreed, and so they got him off Beverly Hills Cop.
I see.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So yeah. Yeah, it was pretty special when the three of us, when John Ashton, who played Taggart, and Eddie and I got out of the van onto the set.
mhm.
Um, Everybody got quiet. It was like had walked out of their past or something. They were kids. Most of the crew were kids young kids when we did the first one, if they had even been born. And so it was like we'd come out of like we'd stepped out of the movie, and
Mhm.
and that was very funny. And then and interesting. And then Eddie said, "Well, after all these years, at least we still resemble our characters." Absolutely, but it was Marty's casting.
Mm,
Marty's he's just got a brilliant eye for actors,
mm.
and yeah, we just clicked, and then the three of us too. It's
Yeah.
like we knew each other. That kind of chemistry is very, very special and rare. You
Mhm.
should look for it more. I don't know that directors look for it as much as maybe they should, because I see a lot of partnerships, and romantic relationships that don't have,
Mm.
chemistry. It's such an important thing, and it's hard to find. But in our case, and Marty, well, he Marty told me that he wanted to work with me after Fast Times,
Uh-huh.
because he played a small cameo role in Fast Times, and he said, "Yeah, I really want to use you in a movie." And and so I was cast before Eddie.
Wow.
I was cast before because Stallone was starring in it. So
Ah.
when Stallone um, left the project, I thought, "Oh no, I had this great role." But then they hired Eddie, and I'm not sure whose idea it was. I wish I could tell you. It might have been Marty's, might have been Jeffrey Katzenberg's. I don't know. But
Mhm.
suddenly I was in an Eddie Murphy movie, and that was pretty exciting. One of my first jobs, the Magnum PI pilot, and they said, "Well, you're going to Hawaii," and I was just living in this shabby little studio
Uh-huh.
apartment, and was packing my bag, and they said, "No, we changed our mind. You're going to be on the back lot in Studio City." But yeah, Tom Selleck he was he's a terrific guy. And
Mm.
that was really fun. But yeah, I did this early TV work, and I was lucky because it wasn't a big job where my career was really on the line. So I learned how to work with the camera, and I was pretty self-conscious in those early jobs. So I got over that. So I was lucky, even though uh, I did Wonder Woman, and I did all these TV shows, but I learned how to work with a camera. So Pipes was comedy college for me,
Yeah, I
because
see.
I was really new to the game, and they had some just monster comic talents. John saw how kind of shy and bashful I was, John Candy, and to this day he's just one of the everybody loves him because he was very lovable, and would he was just naturally take care of people,
Mm.
and so he took me under his wing, and it just made me feel at ease, and we had a great time. We had
Mhm.
a great time, and he was just a great friend. One example of what a great friend he was, when you went to his house, he didn't have his movie posters up. He had his friends' movie posters up,
Oh, I
you
see.
know? So he really cared about
Mhm.
people, cared about his friends. So playing a guy who talks too close to people, it had an element to it that I wasn't aware of. I didn't know that Jerry was kind of a germaphobe. I mean,
Oh,
he'd
really?
admit that himself. He'd admit that himself. So when in rehearsal, I would talk really close to his parents and to um, the other cast. And then when I got to Jerry, I always made sure that I was closer than that. And everybody, I did, but I didn't realize that he was uncomfortable with,
Wow.
with distance. And everybody was laughing. It was funny, but they were laughing like something was going on. And so they called for lunch, and then I went over and I said, "What's so funny?" And they said, "Oh, Jerry is dying. He's dying inside. He can't people being that close." So I made sure after lunch that I was even closer. We were touching noses, and he was just he was so uncomfortable. And so if you ever see that show again, you'll see Jerry just. Oh yeah, Larry David's great gift is finding things that are just irritating in life and then just putting them in his work.
Mhm.
And so I was a series of dysfunctional boyfriends of Elaine's. There was a close talker. There was the guy who had a strange odor. There was a guy who talked too fast, the guy who talked too slow. So I was just one of those. Well, I've always I in the 80s I was able to pick and choose.
Right.
When you get a little older, you have to pick the best of what comes along
Mhm.
and bring the best you have to it. But yeah, I shaved my head because the the Coach Don Meyer, is a celebrated coach, and he had just died 3 months before we started the film,
Mhm.
and it was very interesting experience because his family was still grieving, and I did resemble him somewhat. And when I walked on the set, they were there, and my head was shaved, so they'd never see me that way, and I did resemble him. So it was moving for them. I did a movie there and I just fell in love with it. That was
Mhm.
the main thing. It was like a girl you're going to follow anywhere. I just really loved northern New Mexico. It's mountainous. It's not, people think of it as desert, but it's not. And it's so beautiful and peaceful. I was just drawn to it. And I know that it wasn't the best career move.
Mhm.
But I had more balance. And I had a pretty wild decade, from 82 until, like
Right.
94, really. I just worked constantly. Felt very lucky. I never felt that I didn't want to work. I love my work, but northern New Mexico gave me a balance and
Mhm.
a life.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
John.
yes, sir.